When you think of the United States, you probably think superpower. But how did that happen? Was it always meant to be? Not at all. It's an incredible story, full of conflict, crazy innovation, and just massive, massive change. So let's dive right in.
Yeah, that's really the big question, isn't it? I mean, how did just 13 little colonies, kind of clinging to the edge of a huge continent, turn into the most influential nation on the planet? It seems impossible. Well, that's the journey we're about to take.
Okay, so every great story has a beginning. And for this one, it starts with a challenge that sounds, well, completely impossible. Imagine trying to break away from the biggest, most powerful empire on Earth and start your own country from scratch. That's where we're starting.
So try to put yourself back in time. You're living in one of these 13 British colonies. You're a farmer, maybe a trader. Life is tough, but there's a sense of possibility, right? But there's this growing problem. The government, the British Crown, is literally an ocean away. And they're the ones making all the rules. They're taking your money in taxes, and you get zero say in any of it. You can just feel that tension building up, can't you? It's about to blow.
And it all got boiled down to this one powerful phrase: taxation without representation. You've probably heard it before, but think about what it really means. It's not just a complaint about money. It's the spark that lit the whole fire. It was about a core belief that you should have a voice in your own government, in their own life. And that idea, man, that was powerful enough to kickstart a full-blown revolution.
And just like that, things exploded. The war started in 1775. A year later, just 1 year, the colonies go all in and sign the Declaration of Independence. It was a huge gamble, but after years of really brutal fighting, in 1783, they did it. They actually won. They beat the British Empire. It's wild to think of.
Okay, but winning a war is one thing. Building a country, that's a whole other level of difficult. What do you do now? Well, what they created was, for its time, totally revolutionary. They wrote the U.S. Constitution. It was basically a rule book for a brand new kind of government, one based on ideas like freedom and equality. And just to make extra sure those freedoms couldn't be taken away, they tacked on the Bill of Rights. You know, things like freedom of speech, freedom of religion, all that good stuff.
But here's the thing. There was a huge, glaring problem at the heart of this new nation. A terrible contradiction. How can you build a country on the idea of freedom while millions of people are enslaved? You can't. And that fundamental conflict, it was a ticking time bomb that was going to tear the entire country in two.
And you could really see this split when you looked at the North and the South. The North was becoming industrial. Think factories, cities, trade. They were building things. But the South was completely different. It was an agricultural economy with massive plantations that were entirely dependent on the brutal system of enslaved labor. So we're not just talking about two different ways of making money. We're talking about two completely different societies, and they were heading straight for each other.
And that collision was the Civil War. From 1861 to 1865, the country just tore itself apart. It was unbelievably devastating. Brother literally fighting against brother. In the end, under President Abraham Lincoln, the nation was held together and slavery was finally abolished. But the cost, the human cost, was just immense.
But you know, out of all that destruction, a new America started to emerge. With the country reunited and slavery finally ended, all that energy pivoted towards building. Factories went up everywhere. Railroads started stitching the country together. This was the moment the United States really started to become the economic powerhouse we know today.
All right, so the country is back together, the economy is booming. What's next? Well, for the first time, America really starts to look beyond its own borders. The focus shifts. It's not just about internal struggles anymore. It's about, okay, what's our place in the world?
And the 20th century threw two massive tests at them: the World Wars. World War I was kind of America's debut on the world stage as a serious player. But World War II, that changed everything. By the time it was over in 1945, much of the world was in ruins. But the U.S., its economy was roaring, its military was dominant. This is the moment America steps out as the global superpower.
Now, what came next wasn't a hot war with guns and bombs, but a Cold War that lasted for decades. This was a massive showdown of ideas between the United States and the Soviet Union. Democracy and capitalism versus communism. It was this tense, high-stakes chess match played out with spies, an insane nuclear arms race, and even a race to be the first to the moon.
So that brings us much closer to home, into the more modern era. And interestingly, the focus swings back inward again. The country had to start dealing with some of its own unfinished business. confronting the parts of its own history that didn't quite line up with its big ideals.
Think about this. 100 years after the Civil War was fought to end slavery, millions of Black Americans were still not free. They were living under segregation and denied basic rights. It was a huge injustice. So, people organized. They marched. Led by incredible figures like Martin Luther King Jr., the civil rights movement forced the entire nation to look in the mirror and face that massive gap between the promise of liberty and justice for all and the reality. It was another transformative and incredibly difficult period in American history.
Which brings us right up to today. So what is the profile of modern America? Well, it's still a leader in so many ways. It's the engine of tech and innovation, thanks Silicon Valley. It's a cultural giant, thanks to Hollywood. And of course, it still has an incredibly powerful military and economy. You can feel its influence pretty much everywhere you go. So when you pull back and look at the whole thing, it's really a story of massive contrasts, isn't it? These incredible soaring ideals, right alongside some really deep, painful struggles. Moments of terrible division, and then moments of amazing progress. It's really this ongoing story of a nation constantly trying to become the best version of itself. And that's the key, right? The journey is not over, not by a long shot. It's still being shaped by all of its history, the good and the bad. Which leaves us with the one big question we can't answer yet. What's the next chapter going to be?